My friends, it is Snapshot week once again, and it seems this time Mojang has gone all out on adding new features. I mean, for starters, of course, we have this brand new cherry blossom biome, which I think just looks absolutely stunning. I really love the look of this place. And along with that, Mojang has also added in the brand new Sniffer mob, which was voted on at last October's Minecraft live event. And I must say, he looks quite funny. I mean, just look at him sniffing around on the ground there. But as always with these snapshots, what I'm most interested in are all of the new building blocks that have been added to the game, and there are a lot of them. I mean, we have a brand new cherry wood set here, which looks absolutely amazing, and we also have the new decorated pots, the torch flower, and the pink petal block, which all look amazing as well. And after messing around with all these blocks for a bit, I've actually come up with quite a few different build concepts and designs for you to use in your own worlds once 1.20 releases. But of course, before we get into that, if you aren't already subscribed, please be sure to do so. It'd help me out a whole lot, and I'd really appreciate it. But with that, let's go ahead and get into our first few designs here. All of these are fairly simple, using the new decorated pot block, which you can actually place blocks on top of. So as you can see here, I've used the diamond pot to create kind of this pedestal for the dragon egg, which I think looks pretty cool. And then right over here, I use the same feature to place a candle on top of the skull pot design. And this creates what kind of looks like a makeshift bomb. So mixing that in with some TNT might look pretty nice. And then right over here we have another pretty interesting use for the block, and that is to create bowls for a table. You can actually do this by placing a carpet right on top of the pot block, and I think it creates something that looks pretty convincing overall. And then of course right over here I've placed down some flower pots on top of the blocks, which of course means you can then plant pretty much anything you want in these. Over here I have a pretty nice potted azalea design, which I think looks really nice. However, I did also want to show off that the pot block can be used in a lot more complex building scenarios as well. So for instance, over here, I've created kind of this brick wall looking thing. And what's neat about the pot block is that they're actually a little bit shallower than a full block, which means you get kind of this added depth to the design here by creating these pillars of pot blocks stacking on top of each other. And once again, using the same concept, I've actually gone ahead and created this redwood tree design. So as you can see, it starts with kind of this thick stripped mangrove trunk, and then that kind of shortens down a bit with help from the decorated pot. And then eventually it shortens down into a wall, and then all of the branches and stuff. And honestly, this looks really nice. I might add this into my own forests in my own worlds eventually. But while we're on the topic of trees, I also wanted to show off another creative use for the pots, and that is as coconuts for palm tree designs. You can do this just by placing a pot right under some leaves like so, and taking a look from back here, you can see they definitely do look like coconuts. But moving on now from the decorated pots, I wanted to show off a few different uses for the new cherry wood block, which has been added. And this right here, as you can see, is kind of a bit of a wine cellar. And I thought that the cherry wood kind of looks very much like wine. So I've created kind of a little vat here, and it fits in very well, especially with these bookshelves back here kind of acting as wine bottles. And of course, the pot blocks once again, kind of looking like they're storing wine. But of course, folks, that isn't all you can do with the cherry wood block. You can also make fake nether portals. Yes, this one is kind of a funny one. As you can tell, the cherry wood looks very much like the obsidian block. So just by placing them in a portal frame structure like so, you can create something that very much resembles an actual nether portal. However, aside from that, I think that my favorite use for the new cherry wood block is in gradients. So taking a look over here, I've created some different wall designs, kind of blending these different blocks together. So as you can see, the cherry wood fits in very well with the nether brick blocks. These two colors mesh very well. And the same concept kind of applies over here with the cherry wood and the crimson hyphae. So you can start to kind of blend this down into the nether wart block and create kind of this reddish gradient, which looks very ominous. And altogether, I think I could see the cherry wood block becoming very useful in all sorts of different nether builds, or possibly even end builds. But moving on into something a bit brighter here, we have a beautiful little wedding scene. And this is of course made possible using the new cherry blossom leaves as well as the pink petal blocks, which you can actually do different variants of. So if you place just one of these down, you get just a few little flowers like this, but the more you place, the more flowers you get. So as you get closer to the end here, you can see I've added in even more flowers into each little block. And along with that, I also wanted to mention that these new cherry doors and trapdoors can make for some very nice garden archways and arbors. Right over here, I've placed some vines on the side of this one, and this actually makes for a very cozy design overall. But moving on to our next design here, I wanted to find kind of a different use for the cherry leaves. So I've actually gone ahead and created a bit of a swampland in bloom over here. And if you've ever seen lily pads in real life, oftentimes they are blooming with all sorts of pink flowers, which I've kind of simulated here by waterlogging the blossom blocks and then placing lily pads right on top of them. And overall, mixing in the pink petals as well, I think this creates for a very lush and very beautiful landscape. However, aside from just swamps, I've also gone ahead and tried making deserts a bit more lush by creating some blooming cactus designs. And these, of course, are pretty simple, just by placing a moss block right on top of a cactus block, and then placing the pink petals right on top of that. You get something that vaguely resembles kind of a blooming cactus, if you look at it from certain angles. And I also wanted to mention here that mixed in with the sand, I've used the new suspicious sand block. This is the block that you have to dig in order to get the new pottery shards, and I think it actually helps a lot when designing these more rugged desert terrains. So clearly all of these new blocks work very well for landscaping, but they also work very well for structures and houses. And right over here, you can see I've actually put together a nice little modern house design using the brand new cherry planks. And honestly, I think this might be one of my favorite builds of the bunch, simply because of how well the pink just works as an accent color here. And of course, along with that, I've also added in these cool hanging planter designs, just using the cherry leaves attached to some chains here. But moving on over here, you can see we have a completely different style for a house. This one is kind of Japanese inspired, of course using the cherry planks, but I've also brought in some of the crimson wood here as well, and I think these two blocks mix together very well. In fact, right over here, I've actually brought the two blocks together to create a bit of a fantasy style house. And in here as well, I've also placed some purple blocks, which usually I don't use a lot of in builds because they don't really mix with a lot of blocks. But now that we have the cherry wood, I think it works pretty well altogether. And then for our final design here, I wanted to show off these cool little candy slash dessert builds. I built these because I think the cherry wood works very nice as kind of this strawberry frosting type block. So as you can see, I've created just this cute little cupcake here, as well as this ice cream cone, which is kind of dripping onto the ground here using the pink petals. And of course, we also have some little candies here, as well as some cotton candy, which you can make kind of using the warped wood as the, blue flavor cotton candy. But altogether, I think that these builds really demonstrate how much potential all of these new blocks have in the upcoming update. And honestly, folks, I can't wait to get my hands on them in survival and start building. It's going to be a blast. But with that, if you've enjoyed any of the builds in today's video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe so that way you don't miss out on any future Snapshot videos. And until then, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.